Hi everyone, this is Dr. Ashar Shaik. Let's celebrate the 8th anniversary of Global GHK. And to celebrate that, I've come up with a lecture on skin, especially one of the very difficult and grave pathology of leprosy. So skin is divided into epidermis and dermis. So today we are going to learn more about the dermis, because it is very essential to differentiate the conflicts between these two. The attack conflict is for dermis, and the separation conflict is for the epidermis. And the brutal separation is for leukodermas. So, my dear friends, let's go through the slides and slowly understand what is going to be the approach in cases where the dermis is involved. Let me take you on a journey on step-by-step understanding what exactly has to be understood when we are sitting in front of a grave pathology like leprosy. Now, my dear friends, this person had completely stopped all the conventional medicine and was only on German new medicine and GHK knowledge and the application of homeopathy, which cured him within a month. His treatment is still on, but you can see the remarkable results from the case and the photographs. So, my dear friends, let's go ahead and understand what exactly we have to do. And this is really going to make you replicate what we learned today so that you also can solve most of these difficult pathologies. So, conflict to clarity, experience healing like never before with GNM and homeopathy. The information given in this presentation is for educational purpose only. It's not intended to be substitute for professional medical services. Participants should consult their medical doctors for health reasons before using anything that is disclosed during the course of this presentation. Students shall not use any of the different information given in this presentation while writing their examinations. Gratitude to Dr. Hahnemann, the founder of homeopathy, and Dr. Reigerd Hammer, the father of GNM, the father of homeopathy and the father of GNM, who have been showing me light in my 25 to 30 years of my practice. Now, most difficult cases which I could gather the pictures are here. So there is no limitation when we have the GHK knowledge and homeopathy as a tool in our hand, and we can use them to help the humanity, cure them of all those ailing pains, from deep-seated ulcers, which were not being healed by the conventional medicines and surgery and grafting, from gangrene to psoriasis to atopic dermatitis to shingles. So here there is a combination of skin approach where there is dermis and epidermis, both approaches used, and there was wonderful cures. GNM and GHK. Being the survival mechanism, it removes the fear in the disease in you as a physician as well as in the patient. What does the slide means? Means once you understand GNM and GHK knowledge, it is very easy for the patient to understand why he got this problem, and that gives a light to throws a light in his life that, okay, now I understand why I have this disease. As well as for the physician, it gives a lot of confidence to understand how the approach in the case has to be established. This is the aphorism from Organon of Medicines by Dr. Hahnemann. And this says to us, as homeopaths, that the knowledge of disease and the knowledge of medicine both combined only can give you wonderful and amazing results. Aphorism 4 also says that he is likewise a preserver of health if he knows the things that derange the health and cause the disease. So the causa causalis, the cause of the disease is the most important thing to understand when you are sitting in front of the patient or a suffering person, where you need to identify how the disease started by understanding the ailments from or the cause of the disease. The nature has its own way of recycling life, and for this is these are the principles which German new medicines follows. So what we are talking here are the laws of German new medicine, GHK knowledge. So you see how the disintegration happens and how the laws of German new medicines are followed. So the biological laws which we know, the iron rule of cancer, every disease, including the overall body's ailing, originates from a specific, sudden, intense shock experience that affects the psyche first. First, the psyche, first the mind gets affected. Diseases, the second law is diseases unfold in two phases, the conflict active phase where the body adapts and the healing phase where the symptoms manifest during the tissue restorations. The ontogenetic system of tumors, the location and symptom of the corresponding specific brain areas related to initial shock and the type of conflict experience depending on the germ layer affected during the conflict specific tissues and symptoms emerge, reflecting the evolutionary history of the body. So what we understand is here on the brain level also and the organ level, both simultaneously, when the conflict affects these two gets these two show the effect on them in the form of hammerhead in the brain, and the organ according to the germ layer either multiplies or there is a cell loss. The ontogenetic system of microbes. The microbes don't cause disease, but they play a vital role during the healing phase. Diseases are not contagious. The microbes help us eat up the dead material, help us clean. So, anytime when the conventional medicine uses antibiotics to kill these microbes, there are tumors or cysts which remain non-healing in the body, and that's what is making us see so many patients with small tumors or cysts or benign tumors or capsulated cyst. All these is happening because the microbes are not allowed to do their job. The fifth biological law is also called diseases has special biological purpose and should not be suppressed, and they aid in restoring body's balance and well-being. Very, very, very important. The body heals on itself. It's a survival mechanism. You should not allow any of these medicines to come in between your healing process and suppress it or put into hanging healing. So these are the biological laws which I was talking about with that video which I showed you. Dr. Kent, one of the masters of homeopathy, says the tissue could not be so sick unless something prior to them had been deranged and make the person sick. The real sick man is prior to the disease. So beautifully said. Always before the sickness sets in is the psyche which gets affected, which you have to think of analyzing, understanding when the patient is coming to you. You should know what happened before all these aches and pains started. Diseases are not malfunctions, the organism, but instead are biological special programs of the nature, SBS, created for our own survival. So whatever changes we go in after the psyche gets affected are our survival mechanism. So you should observe that in your patient if he comes in front of you. Also, we are capable of healing our own diseases. The healing of diseases is inherent in all of us. A wound automatically heals. You don't have to apply antiseptics and creams and all those things. Not the condition which go into conflict active phase and healing phase. That's a note which you need to know about. Now we need to understand the basics of our nervous system. Our nervous system is divided into central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. This peripheral nervous system is divided into autonomic nervous system and somatic nervous system. What is very important to understand how the GNM chart of conflict active, the sympathetic tonia and the vagotonia, how the equilibrium is maintained, how the nervous system works is very important to understand. That's the reason I took up this slide. The autonomous nervous system is divided into sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic. Two things. If they work in equilibrium, the health is maintained. But I'll explain you now. This is sympathetic nervous system. The days the activity which we do, the pupils dilate, the saliva inhibits, the air dilates, and the parasympathetic, the resting nerve. It's the resting phase, the relaxation phase. So if you are all the time in the sympathetic activity phase, then what happens exactly is if you're all the time in the sympathetic activity phase, even in the night you are in sympathetic active phase, sympathetonia, then the thing is your sleep gets disturbed. And there is where the conflict active phase goes into a chronic suffering, and you never go into a resting phase. There is never regeneration, there is never resting, and the body is all the time into fight and flight mode. So the day it's a sympathetic activity. The night, it is the parasympathetic activity. The day you have a fight with your boss, the night you slept well and forgive and forget about it, or become aware of the thing and not think about it before sleeping. Again, you have a fight with your neighbor, and night you forget and forgive everything and sleep normal. So if this is maintained, then the normal rhythm in your body is maintained. But if this equilibrium is disturbed, then comes a problem, and there is where the diseases start. So if there is a issue, if there is, for example, attack conflict, because we are going to deal with the dermis today. So if there is an attack conflict, you go into stress active phase, which is also called as the conflict active phase, which is prolonged sympathetic reaction. Then later on, when the stress is resolved by awareness and understanding what has happened, you go into a healing phase. This healing phase, if there is lot of accumulation of fluid, then there is one epileptide crisis or a sympathetic crisis, which we understand, where the if it's a boil, the pus is thrown out, and then there is relaxation and healing and scarring. And after the scarring, if we have the whole situation changes and we come to normal rhythm, then and we forgive and forget what caused us the attack conflict, or rather be aware of it. Then if the awareness is very important, once we become aware of it, the body regains to normal rhythm, that is normotonia, and the life goes on. So this is how it has been explained here, the sympathetic reaction. And then once the sympathetic reaction happens, the stress, the conflict active phase is here. The stress goes on, then you go into sympathetic crisis, and there is a secondary healing. You rest, prolonged rest, and you next day you are normal. But if the stress remains active, this type of stress remains active, you are all the time in sympathetic activity and you get tired, hanging phase comes in, and there is deterioration and death. So hanging conflict refers to a situation where the person remains in the conflict active phase. Very important, because all autoimmune and chronic disease mostly are in conflict active phase, because The conflict cannot or has not yet been resolved. Many of us are living with hanging conflict with little or no symptoms also. So the conflict active, you're balancing carefully, fully focused and stressed as every step is critical. This is body respond to perceived threat or unresolved issues. Hanging conflict, you get stuck halfway on the rope, unable to move forward or backward. The stress lingers and your body remains in hanging healing. Lasting intense conflict activity, however, drains the energy, which could lead to death. Yet a person can never die of cancer. Those who don't make it through the conflict active phase die as a result of energy loss, weight loss, sleep deprivation, and above all, because of the fear of the disease, particularly the fear of cancer. So, my dear friend, GHK knowledge always saves you from all these fears, and you become confident and you can resolve your own problems and also resolve your own diseases or the survival mechanism if you know what caused it and stay away from it. So let's understand a case of leprosy. Now, this is a very, very dreaded disease, and these people are isolated. They are kept on medicines from Dapsone to whatnot, and they keep on suffering, and they are treated as untouchables, and they are isolated. But, my dear friends, once you understand GHK knowledge and the application of it, we can also help these people completely come out. I repeat, completely come out of the problem. Leprosy is always labeled as irreversible pathology, God's curse, chronic pathological case, most infectious disease, rare disease. Leprosy is deeply misunderstood disease, often isolating those affected due to fear and stigma. Many still believe it is highly contagious, leading to social rejections and untouchability. For patients, however, homeopaths offer hope, focusing on treating the whole person and not just the disease. But in homeopathy, we need to know the German new medicine and the German new medicine knowledge to approach these type of cases. So let's understand and go through the case. This case came to me. He had already diagnosed with leprosy since 1 month. He has been skin eruptions, swollen patches with deformities, started from right to left elbow, medial side. Now all over the body, burning sensation with numbness, generalized weakness with low appetite. These were his reports. And here you see the smear shows acid fast bacilli resembling Mycobacterium leprae. Let's see the video. See the hands, the lesions are all spread on the body. This is how he's suffering. So he has lesions all over. This is the photograph where we understand how the lesions are troubling him. He is on conventional medicine with no relief. That's the reason he came to us. By using German new medicine knowledge and homeopathy and combining them, the approach to these type of cases became easy. How? We will understand. My dear friends, you can use this type of approach in most of the dermis condition. And once you use this approach in most of the dermis condition, you will start getting results in the most difficult pathologies. This is what he has to say. तुम्हाला त्रास काय काय होतो? मला त्रास फक्त
पाय आग मारतात काही काळामध्ये फोड झाले त्यांना कॅन्सर जे फोड झाले त्याचा त्रास नाही होता पायाला जे झाले त्याच्यामुळे आग होती चालता येते ते सूज आली ना त्याच्यामुळे पाय चालण्यास त्रास होतो बाकी त्याचं खाजत वगैरे काय नाही चोडचोड वगैरे काही करत नाही खाजत नाही एवढं खाजत नाही चोडचोड करत नाही बधीर झालंय का ते तुला पण असं हातचं कसं काही स्पर्श झालं बधीरचं काढत थोडं मग असं सासवडी लागत म्हणजे ते त्यांना बधीर पण पाहिजे सासवडी लागत मानेवर वगैरे आधी ते थोडं पाहिलं होतं त्यांनी आम्हाला नंतर फोटो पाठवले तेव्हा कळलं की सगळं त्यामुळे मी परत म्हणजे वार्ता काही फोन करतो आपण केली लवकर आवायला पाहिजे.
So this he goes on with his story. I can read on those story because I've written down on the slide. He just goes on telling how and what happened before he started suffering with this dreaded disease. He says he has no conflict with anyone. Everything in his life is peaceful. He maintains a good relationship with his wife, children, and even at work. He had never quarreled with anyone in the village, even when things go wrong. He simply lets the other person win, often saying, "You are great, I am small," as a way of keeping peace. He never took his stand because of his love for harmony and aversion to arguments, prioritizing positive relationship and togetherness. This is what his makeup is. This is how his constitution is. This is how his behavior is. We need to know and understand how he is, what type of person he is, because the emotions and the mood and emotions fire neurotransmitters, and these neurotransmitters can change enzymes and hormones in long term by release of those neurotransmitters like adrenaline and cortisol, which go on in the body and start affecting that organ which is getting affected by that emotional cause. He's somewhat fearful of his disease, not himself, but for others. His main concern is that no one else, especially his loved ones, might be infected because of him. He's living with his grandchildren who frequently visit. He worries about their safety and doesn't want this illness to cause them any harm. Overall, he is secretive, but he has become emotional and tearful while speaking, deeply moved by the thoughts of protecting his family from the disease. So I asked something about him to his son also. So his son said he used to drink, which sometimes led to arguments. Because what I was searching here was attack conflict. Where was he verbally attacked, which led into all these problems? So I had to ask the son because he was not able to connect or understand what I'm asking him. During those times, he would simply listen to her without responding. The son's mother, means her husband, the patient's husband, wife, used to always shout and use abusive words. She used to use all abusive words, abusive words against him. Used to feel insulted by her words, but he kept quiet because this is what we know about him. He does not retaliate. He's the one who will always adjust. He never argues with anyone, is naturally very caring. Recently, when our sisters are unwell, he insisted her to come to the doctor's appointment instead of him. Means what he said, because there is a lot of patients waiting, and the sister was not getting, the daughter means because it's the son saying, the daughter of this patient was not getting appointment, though he was suffering so much. He wanted the sister to see me, not him, because he always prioritizes their children's health before him, over his own. Even though he was also suffering, he wanted the sisters to see me, not himself. So here we see how much anxiety he has for others. The skin consists of two layers now, just to give an approach, is namely the first epidermis and the second, the corium skin, the dermis, the underskin. The underskin is specially made for protection. The function relatively thick dermis is to protect the organ against injury and attack. Our patient was verbally attacked. So see how the verbal attacks also affects the psyche and cause this type of survival mechanism. So the epidermis is made up of stratum corneum, lucidum, and granulosum, stratum spinosum. The corium skin is made up of stratum basilae, sebaceous gland, aerator pilae, and dermis. So the epidermis, when gets affected, causes dermatitis, eczemas, urticarias, measles, rubella, chickenpox, rosacea, lupus, psoriasis, herpes, vitiligo, skin. Vitiligo is little deeper layer. It's the brutal separation, which is the conflict here. Skin rashes and warts. The conflict for the epidermis is separation conflict, is separation from the loved one, or also wanting to separate from the loved one or the person who is troubling you. No longer allowed to touch or able to touch, want to separate. Unwanted touch also is separation conflict of the epidermis. When it comes to the Korean skin, what we have to we see the pathologies or the survival mechanism: melanomas, acne, carbuncles, abscess, cyst, leprosy, our case today, pustula, eczema, shingles, ringworm, nail, fungal, sweat glands. The attack conflict or the disfigurement conflict, which usually occurs when there is dermis involvement, feeling unclean, feeling soil, consider as repellents such as dirt. So in homeopathy, we find a very good rubric here is mind disgust about his own body. Leprosy, which layer is the corium skin. So we have to consider the attack conflict. Who was attacking our patient? The wife. Why? Because she used to abuse him and say so many things in front of the children, in front of the grandchildren, and that is what he did not like. The slides and everything has been taken from the learninggnm.com site. The corium skin. What the corium skin? Learninggnm.com says. The learninggnm.com says that there is a verbal attack. For example, yelled at, scolded, assaulted, or threatened with sharp, aggressive words, typically which hit the face, forehead, and insult against one's intelligence, or a backstab. So all these things can affect the skin also, leading into the disfigurement conflict, which we also had in this patient, making him feel unclean and feeling soiled. This is again from the source learninggnm.com. Why this slide is most important is in the conflict active, what happens, you need to always and always know when there is a conflict active, there is melanocytes in the corium skin. When they get attacked or soils forming compact growth, which is called as melanomas. This is very important to understand because in homeopathy, when we consider the psyche, brain, and organ, we need to know how the organ is responding and what layer is getting affected. And that's the reason endoderm, mesoderm, and ectoderm are very important to understand in GHK. And if you understand the three layers, we can understand how those layers are going to respond in certain crises. So, for example, the skin is going to go into a loss conflict. There is going to be cell loss. Okay, and if it is the endoderm or the brainstem control organs, then the body is going to go into proliferation. So we need to understand what the body is going through after the psyche getting affected, after the injury, what the body is going through. So conflict active phase, the melanocyte in the corium screen proliferate at attacked or soiled site. These melanocytes, which we were talking about in the corium screen, proliferate at the attacked or soiled site, forming a compact growth as melanoma. From an evolutionary viewpoint, melanoma serve the biological purpose to provide a protective layer and thick skin against a further attack. So what was this happening in his body? Very important to understand. What was happening in the body? The body was producing melanomas to protect him from those verbal attacks. See the survival mechanism. Because this person is very mild, timid, and does not want to respond in certain situations and keep quiet, the body itself is making melanomas to protect him from those attacks. See how the verbal insults and everything can affect a body. And you need to understand this. To understand this will make you understand the pathology more better. And when you understand the pathology, you can apply those pathology in your better analysis of your rather your repertorization, which will help you cure these type of difficult cases very easily. So leprosy is related to attack conflict, and what we saw in the reports of the Mycobacterium leprae is what Learning GNM source says. We can read them in the learninggnm.com. What is the healing phase? We need now we saw the attack. What happens when there is melanomas being found? Now in the healing phase, following the conflict resolution, the fungi, TB, bacteria remove the cells that are no longer needed. So my dear friends, this is healing phase where the patient came in with Mycobacterium leprae to us. So this was the healing phase. The involvement of TB bacteria causes skin tuberculosis. Involvement of Mycobacterium leprae causes leprosy. In leprosy, the growth develops on a flat plane rather than forming complex boils, which we saw in our patient in the picture. The continuous repair process, hanging healing in the dermis, leads eventually to the disfigurement of the skin, where also the upper layer and the dermis shows disfigurement. So here again, the patient was in normotonia, then he came into the sympathetonia when the skin got affected. He went into conflict active phase. And when we took the case history, made him aware about this whole situation, then we tried to resolve the conflict. During the resolving of the conflict, the body showed melanomas. Then after the melanomas, there when we started giving medicine, there is scarification, and then I will show you the pictures how he completely recovered when he went into normotonia. An attack conflict. Let's understand the attack conflicts first. The attack conflict is experienced, for instance, through an attack by a person or by an animal. Verbal attacks, for example, being yelled at, scolded at, assaulted, or threatened with sharp and aggressive words. This is what our patient was going through the wife, and that is what he was not liking and was getting hurt because she used to say all these things in front of the family members and the children and the grandchildren. Sexist remarks, sexual accusation, or any attack against one's sexual orientation usually strike below the waist, hearing offensive words. Disfigurement conflict, when a person starts having acne, or because acne is also dermis, or leprosy, being criticized in a hostile manner, discrimination, defamation, or an insult against one's integrity, feeling unclean, smelly, sweaty, stinky, feeling soil, for example, when coming in contact with something considered as repellent, such as dirt, feces, urine, dirty words thrown at one's face, or gossiping behind one's back might provoke the conflict. What is happening to this layer? What is triggering the cell proliferation? Mesoderm in the origin, it forms corious skin controlled by the brain cerebellum. Attack conflict affects the psyche. The mesoderm gets affected, reacts with the cell proliferation. So epidermis, there is cell loss. Here there is cell proliferation. Melanomas in the corium skin. And we'll see these melanomas are so important to take when we analyze the case. So when we analyze the case and we came to a conclusion, taking the radar software by taking his state, mental state. He was abused. What was the cause? Causa causalis. He was abused and he felt indignated, insulted in front of everybody, even in front of grandchildren, which he did not like. Now, my dear friends, the layer, very important. Melanomas are being formed over there, or the skin levels. So this is very important to understand. How was our patient? He wanted harmony. He did not wanted any quarrels. So he used to keep quiet and he was very yielding. So this was the psyche which got affected, which caused it. The germ layer is here, the mesoderm, and the adaptation towards this situation is here. So here we see the whole picture of psyche, brain, and organ is understood by how we analyze in homeopathy. We gave him carcinosin 4+ dose and see the results. Why are we considering layer? From this layer, we can see the pathology doing biopsy. We have taken rubrics for proliferation and adaptation. Now, here too, we are fulfilling Master Hahnemann's desire. See how he felt better.
बोला. मला या गोळ्या चालू केल्यापासून 8 दिवसानंतर थोडं बरं.
So here he says he was much better. These are his pictures. See all those spots, all those nodosities are completely gone. Let me take you down to the old pictures so you can appreciate the changes. See this? Here, the skin was all affected, and after that, after our doses, leprosy. Okay, just this is leprosy. It is they give the medicine all their life, and see how the lesions within a month started cleaning up. All these things cleaned up. You remember his elbow? It was completely affected. Everything improved, and later on, all these spots also disappeared. So, my dear friends, let's have a quiz here, a small quiz which will make us understand. This is shingles. Okay, see, there is a risk of eye and the ear also getting affected. But with the knowledge of Germany medicine, GHK, and learning through global GHK, all what confidence we get in prescribing is here. So shingles, what is going to it be? It's a attack conflict. This person was facing the same type of attack, verbal abuses, and got angry and had this thing on his face. See, it is mostly on the right side. And see how beautiful the result is. And he was completely only on homeopathy, and by making him aware through the knowledge of GHK, by studying under global GHK. Psoriasis. Okay. Here his whole body is getting affected. See the dates 18/1/2020. This is how his skin was affected. I can zoom in. And within a span of 2 months, he completely recovered. He completely recovered. Now, psoriasis, what are we going to consider? The separation conflict. When I show you this case, I will let you know what was the conflict and what was the story. But it was all about separation conflict. Epidermis, ectoderm, cell loss. There's always going to be cell loss. So the scaling which you see is cell loss. Vitiligo. See how beautifully the chin completely recovered. This is vitiligo. So this picture and this makes us understand what conflict has to be taken in vitiligo, which I told you before. It has to be separation conflict. Epidermis, ectoderm, and cell loss. So thank you, my dear friends. Hope this lecture made you understand and hope this can be replicated by you, because this has to be the approach. What has to be the approach is one, you have to understand the conflict. Then you have to understand the layer which is getting affected and how the layer is trying to protect itself in the survival mechanism. And then you also have to see how the patient is adapting and adapting into this survival mechanism. Is this three things you consider the most grave pathology, my dear friends. There will be more and more lectures from GHK mentors and groups. Please attend them, because these type of pathologies, if you can handle and not fear, our mission of teaching you under the global GHK banner is something which will make us feel good about that. Okay, we are able to show to the world that yes, this all is curable and can be taken care of very easily. You don't have to fear these dreaded diseases. This is all about my addresses. I am there in Nasik, Mumbai, Pune, and Dubai. And this is my Instagram handle, where you can see more of these type of cases, where there must be more than 100 cases of different diseases, where you can see how the approaches and how beautifully we can cure most of those diseases, which the conventional medicine calls incurable. So thank you, my dear friends. Again, we are celebrating the 8th anniversary of Global GHK. I thank Dr. Verghese, our director, and all the fellow speakers, Dr. Motiwala, Dr. sorry, Danny, Dr. Archana, and many more who are going to present different cases and their own experience. So I invite you to attend all of their videos. I also thank my backup team, Soel and his wives, Zoha and Pooja, and my team, my clinic team. There are around 18 doctors who work relentlessly on making such presentations and helping me solve these type of cases, from Dr. Tawfiq to all of Dr. Simran, my daughter, who helps me always, motivates me. My wife, Dr. Raina, whose lectures are also there on these global GHK platforms. So do hear them. There are different pathologies, from heart to thyroid. Everything has been covered in this celebration, 8th anniversary of Global GHK. And wish you all good luck. And we will be there coming with different lectures. So try attending most of them. Even if you miss, you can see the recordings and learn from there. Thank you.